hell is other people.
This is what French philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre wrote in his 1944 play No Exit. But Sartre wasn't stuck in isolation for over a year, and considering if you go on Google Trends and look at Roll20, this happened in March 2020. So I think it's safe to say that tabletops and social interactions are a vital part of our lives. And listen, we all love D&D. Critical Role is over 100 episodes into Season 2, and they still average over 1 million views. 5th edition's best-selling year was 2019, and we're seeing a bunch of D&D references in TV and movies.
Oh no! It can't be! A gelatinous cube!
D&D is no doubt massive, bigger than ever. Roll20 celebrated 5 million players on March 5th, 2020. 14 days later, California went into lockdown as the first state in the States, so the number is probably a bit bigger today. But considering that 5e was released in 2014, and it hasn't been much more to do the last year than sit in a virtual room rolling level 1 wizards that cannot resist a single club from a goblin, you might be in the mood for something a bit different. So that's why I'm here, to talk about the tabletop RPGs that I've enjoyed lately that isn't D&D. Let's start off with EXPANSE by Green Ronin. The EXPANSE is a book series written by James S.A. Corey, a pen name used by Daniel Abram and Ty Frank, but you probably know it best as the incredible TV show with the same name, saved by former Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos, a man with a space fetish so big that even his rocket looks like a dick. The setting is a near future where humans have developed a fusion drive called the Epstein drive. Yeah, I know. The Epstein drive allows humans to travel within the solar system and led to the colonization of Luna, Mars, and the asteroid belt. This later led to 3 major factions showing up in the solar system. Earth and Luna became unified under one banner, the United Nations. Mars became the Martian Congressional Republic, a nation with a small population living in domes on an inhospitable wasteland with advanced technology, massive guns, and a bit of a feud with the UN. So basically Texas. The last faction is the OPA, the Outer Planets Association. They started out as a labor union on the asteroid belt that was sick of getting ruled by people on Earth and the inner planets, and is a social political movement if you ask someone who sympathizes with the Belters. If you ask someone that hates unions, they're a terrorist organization. The Expanse was originally meant to be an MMORPG because it was the early 10s and people thought that was a good idea. Therefore, it's quite developed for the tabletop RPG world. This gives you the tools for it to be your crew, your story, and your Expanse. If you want to explore a ghost ship from a ship that's just outside of Luna, or the UN pays you to stop a Belter rebellion, or a bunch of Martian soldiers have occupied a Belter ship, the options are plenty in this setting.
Going on out there, all this shitstorm that we're in, it's all got to do with her.
Expanse uses the age system developed by Green Ronin. You have 3d6, 2 of them is the same color and the third one is a different one and is called a drama die. The good thing about using 3d6 compared to D&D that uses a d20 is that it creates a bell curve. Getting a 9 or 12 on a check is much more likely than getting a 3 or 18, which means that if you're having a +3 or a +1 to a skill, it can actually make a major difference. The system also have a really cool feature called stunts. Let's say you need to roll an infiltration check, and you roll your 3d6, and 2 of them are a 5. Then you generate 5 stunt points. You can then use those stunt points to purchase specific skills. You can only use them once though. But with 5 stunt points in infiltration, you could, for example, get the fancy meeting you here stunt, which allows you to meet a random NPC that has one ability that you lack. This can lead to really cool situations, and this is just one of many stunts in the book. So overall, if you want a grounded sci-fi story where you don't play a mighty wizard or a powerful fighter, but instead just a normal engineer or an average pilot, and you have to engage in ship battles and deal with relevant social issues, then you should definitely check out The Expanse.
All that's waiting out there for you is more trouble.
The ship's ready. Are you?
Next up is Kids on Brooms by Hunter Entertainment. If you were born between 1990 and 2000, odds are that you have a near and dear relationship to Harry Potter. But J.K. Rowling, let's just be grateful that death of the author is a thing. But now we have a tabletop RPG where you can see the imprints of where the serial numbers of Harry Potter were filed off, but J.K. Rowling is far away. Kids on Brooms is a thin book, roughly 100 pages, so it's quite easy to learn and uses the same system as Kids on Bikes or Teens in Space. You have 6 stats: Bronze, Brain, Fight, Flight, Charm, and Grit. And aside 1 die from D4 to D20 to each of those stats, depending on your character. Maybe you are a charming jock with a D20 in Charm and D12 in Fight, but only a D4 in Brains. Or someone super intelligent with a D20 in Brains, but tend to be a bit clumsy, so they only have a D4 in Flight.
I'm Gwanda.
Wait, your name is Gwanda?
Yes, it's African. I'm South African. No accent though, because I was raised here.
This system forces you to make a character that isn't good at everything, and while it might lead to some stereotypical characters, at your table it really helps to assign everyone their role and avoid situations where one character takes all the checks. If you need someone to solve a puzzle in potions class, it makes sense to hand to the table's own Marie Curie and leave the kid that thinks that amino acid is a very potent type of LSD out of it.
We can do better.
The game is a Harry Potter homage, there's no way around it. We have wands of different material, and the material you should use is dictated by your main stat. If you are a grit character, you should use lilac wood and a core of steel. If you are brawn, oak with a core of gorilla fur. There are brooms like the Bolting 4000 or the Mastermind Sweeper. They are literally a class called Defense Against Malicious Magic. But honestly, all this is fine. Harry Potter, regardless of what J.K. Rowling has done to wreck the brand the last couple of years, was a vital part of young and old people's life in the 90s and noughties. And I'm glad that we got one official, unofficial Harry Potter tabletop game that is fun, and it leaves a lot up to GMs and players' creativity. If you want to play a Founders game where you are a group of friends that start a school, or a coven that goes rogue after the Salem trials, or you literally just want to attend Hogwarts in 2021, 25 years after Harry Potter, and deal with that McGonagall probably have a few Horcruxes laying around, you can.
Yeah. We lost Harry tonight. He's still with us. In here. So's Fred. Remus.
The last game I want to talk about is Dark Times by Polyhedral Knights. I love the cyberpunk genre, but the last AAA game we got in that genre ended up feeling like a bad amino acid trip. The premise of Dark Times is quite cool. In 2023, the founder of Prometheus Medical initiated something called Project Fire. Project Fire tried to create superhumans by genetically alter their cell structure. The project failed when none of the subjects managed to manifest any superpowers, but he did move on to use nanotech. He used nanotech to create what they call peacekeepers. If you ever played any cyberpunk game, you know exactly what a peacekeeper is. They're like this police force of the future. A few years later, the subject of Project Fire did actually manifest superpowers. So that led to Prometheus Medical and all the rival corporations to run around and find these enhanced, as they call them, because they saw them as their property. This of course led to some of the enhanced actually giving in and starting working for the Megacorps, and others are currently hiding underground as illegal enhanced. There are essentially 4 sources of power in Dark Times. We have hereditary powers, which are the children of the original subjects of Project Fire. These are more like the classic superheroes and have a lot of the powers you do expect for like Human Torches and similar. We have the mutants, which are someone that is exposed to the virus that was created by Project Fire but failed to manifest any powers. Here is where you got your Hulks or Deadpools or similar. They are ugly, and it doesn't really help that there are some ravenous mutants that try to eat humans that is living in the sewer, similar to the Nosferatu in Vampire. So there are laws that says that you cannot kill a mutant, but those laws are more like suggestions.
Oh, wow.
Cool your pits. They're growing back.
I'm talking about your face. I've never seen you without your mask before. Jesus Christ.
Looks like an avocado.
Next up is nanotech. You can use nanotech on everyone because it's just very expensive surgery. It's like Hereditary Powers in that you're treated as corporate property and you have like similar abilities, but just a bit weaker. It's mainly used to create peacekeepers and give them like superhuman strength or similar, but if you all want to be a peacekeeper, you have to go through like corporate mind control to make you stay loyal to them. So this has led to a black market popping up and making sure that you can get nanotech in the basement of a shady guy you met at a bar. It's just very expensive. The last one is cybertech, and if you ever played any cyberpunk game, you know exactly what I'm talking about. This is where you get the metal arm to smash through walls and break the guy's neck on the other side. There are essentially two types of cybertech. The first one is the limb and organ replacement, which is legal but usually means that the person that paid for it owns you. And the second one is more gun as arm in the basement of shady guy you met at the bar. Cybertech is easier to get than nanotech, but it is also a bit weaker. Where someone with cybertech can punch through a wall, someone with nanotech could probably blow up that wall with their mind. Instead of classes, Dark Times have something called archetypes, and you can probably guess what the archetypes are. We have the Brick, which is the Hulk. We got the Mover, which is the Flash, Mentalist, Dr. Psycho, Blaster, Nova, and a bunch of other, each with unique talents. Of course, even if you aren't enhanced, you can still become a Brick with use of nanotech or cybertech, but you won't have access to the Brick talents, which is locked to the hereditary power system. And the game has like a million different skills, ranging from police science and corporate knowledge to brawling and hacking, which leads to plenty of customizability, especially if you are a hereditary power character with some kind of cybertech on top of that. It really gives you a bunch of different things to play with. I think as a closing statement, Dark Times really does something different with the superhero tabletop genre, where the more known games like Icons or Masks have like a certain style to them. Dark Times just doesn't combine himself with the cyberpunk genre, which leads to interesting stuff there, but it also has like a darker overall story. It's more about the surveillance state or an economical collapse in a superhero setting. If you have the ability to punch through walls and rob a bank with like your mind, and you also see people around you living in poverty, how does that affect you as a character? And I think this can lead to really interesting stories if you just play into it a lot. And it helps that it's a cyberpunk setting, so it lends itself to a lot of Jeff Bezos jokes, which, if you haven't noticed, I'm quite fond of. And listen, I'm not saying get rid of D&D for good, because it's a good game, it's a brilliant game, and it's brought millions of new players into this hobby. But I'm saying that there are so many other excellent systems out there, and you as a game master or you as a player might have a lot to learn from just trying other stuff, because all other systems have so many cool ideas that can really bring something interesting to your D&D games. And maybe even you just figure out that, hey, I prefer playing Chronicles of Darkness over D&D, and that's fine as well. I mean, there are so many game masters out there that try to create D&D into a completely different game, instead of just giving a game that follows that setting a lot better a chance. Like, I've seen people that try to make D&D into like a modern day hunter supernatural thing. Why not just play Chronicles of Darkness? Like, broaden your horizons, and you will find yourself learning a lot of other stuff and enjoy a lot of other stuff, because tabletop is a beautiful hobby, and those people that put so much love into their systems really deserve to get their games played.